know what ranking we are. Of course he does, but he's not going to admit it, and he doesn't have to. And the players should have the same thing. We're not going to pay attention to the rankings, but they are.
Agreed.
All right, I got one for you. Is there a concern about a letdown going from playing Georgia Tech to a team like East Carolina? And here's what he says. You look at East Carolina and what they did the second half of last season. They put up a bunch of points, were in a bunch of tight football games, found ways to win some of them. It's a prideful group. Year 2 for their staff with their players. I don't think our kids are going to take anything lightly. This is a big football game for us. The next one on our schedule. It's the only one we get a chance to win this Saturday. Our kids will be excited and prepare the right way.
Well, first off, let me take a little shot at East Carolina and say they're prideful, which is really a nice way of saying they're not very good. But here's the thing: did you guys see the Tulsa game last year? Did you guys saw us play against Tulsa? We went up there and it was a small crowd. It was a sort of a crummy atmosphere. We did not play well. We got a little bit ahead of ourselves. We were in our own business. Who the heck knows what was going on? And we did not play well. And so this year, I'm not letting that crap happen again, because I'll be damned if I'm going to lose to an ECU team that I know we're better than. We're going to go up there. We're going to play hard. These guys only have a handful of games this year. We're not promised every game on the schedule. So these guys, got to cherish every game, because it could be, it could be something where we lose this game in a heartbeat. So, and I don't mean lose it in terms of the game, but lose it off our schedule. So these guys better be prepared. I'm going to have them ready to go and motivated. I hope it's a good game, but I think we're better than ECU. And my hope is we come out of that thing 2-0, and I'm going to have my guys ready.
That's right. It doesn't really matter who we're playing any week of this season. The fact that we're playing football, 1, is a blessing. 2, we can't take for granted. I don't care who's on the other sideline. We're coming out. Like I told you, everybody last week, if you're juiceless, you're useless. Our guys got to create their own atmosphere in this game. No fans in the stands. Doesn't mean a thing. We're coming out there and we're ready to kick the crap out of East Carolina. And you're right, prideful. They're a prideful group. That is a nice way of saying it. So.
Yeah, that was a really backhanded compliment, right? Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Heupel said that in his post-game press conference after the game on Saturday. That essentially, and I hadn't even really considered it, Mike, but it's actually, I guess it's happened before. In terms of the way testing works and when they're getting their COVID test results back, I guess apparently they don't even really get a chance to know for a fact that the game is being played. He said till 9:30 that morning. So up until 9:30 Saturday morning, which I assume was when he's referring to the test results are all back for both teams and they're able to understand who can go and do they have enough position players and all that stuff, right? So imagine getting all the way up to Atlanta, doing everything you can for the week, and really literally not knowing 2 hours before kickoff whether or not you're going to be able to play. And I don't know if the players are aware of that. I don't know if that's something that they're sitting on the locker room and 9:30 rolls around and they go, okay, we're all go, let's go. But if that doesn't sort of hopefully make every game count and feel and be important to these guys, I think that's just a really telling. That was actually really kind of eye-opening when he said that, because imagine, you and I were sitting around figuring out what we want to do, and we were getting ready for the game and what we're going to wear and where we're going to sit and who's coming over. And what would your emotions have been if you had heard at 9:35 the game was off, right? We would have just lost our minds. I imagine the players are in the same boat. So hopefully, that's one of those things where they sort of take every opportunity to get out in the field and perform, because you just don't know if it's coming every week after all.
Dude, if that happens to me at some point this week, I'm going to cry. At some point this season. That's horrible. I get jacked up all week waiting for Saturday. The rest of the week I don't care about. But Saturday comes, I'm ready for football. You're telling me at 9:30 in the morning that there's no game that day. That's one of the worst things you can tell me. It's like baseball when the game gets rained out, but sometimes that you're expected that happens, and then you make it up anyway. There would be no makeup for this. I can't even comprehend that. So, but these games that are getting postponed and canceled on Memphis and Houston, we've known that a few days in advance. I guess they're just testing that much earlier, and they're not passing those tests, and they don't even bother with the Thursday test or the Friday test.
I don't know. I don't know what every school is doing, but it was funny that Memphis and Houston, I think, got postponed. So then Houston wanted to play Baylor, and then that got postponed. So I mean, it's just a who's on first situation, but I guess don't take any game for granted here. So, all right, Mike, here's my next one for you, and it is the question was, what improvement do you hope to see between week 1 and week 2? Obviously, there's a big answer, but I'll trim this down a little bit. Heupel said, quote, offensively, the penalties, getting us behind the chains. You want to see those things eliminated. The turnovers we had we can eliminate those things too. It's all 11 guys, not just the guy with the ball. Defensively, some of the coverage things we busted on. Well, that didn't sound good. We can shore those things up. For us, it's a process. Find a way to go 1-0 every week, and the only way you can do that is to go 1-0 every day. That's been our focus. Mike, what did he really mean to say?
Some sloppy play there in the first game, which was to be expected, I guess, but that's not going to be tolerated. I mean, penalties are something that we can control. We're getting that cleaned up right away. And if you're going to commit mental errors, I'm going to take you out of the game. We have plenty of guys that can fill in and take over. If you're not ready to play, there's no use for you on the field. So I'm not going to put up with this crap. Penalties, turnovers. We limit those things. There's nobody on our schedule that can beat us if we don't beat ourselves. So as long as we take care of the football and play smart football, we're going to go 1-0 every week.
The defensive side was interesting. I think early on, it felt like the defense was very much bend, don't break. We had we had several turnovers, obviously, that sort of changed the fortune. But for a while, there did seem like receivers were kind of running wide open in the middle there. They were kind of getting easy, 6, 7, 8, 10 yards whenever they needed to. Obviously, ultimately, we were able to stop some drives, get them off the field, and turn the ball over, which was the key to the games there. But the defense was a little bend, don't break. So I was really interested when he said the coverages that were busted. I think it is interesting to see how do we clear that up. Antoine Collier's health, what does that look like for ECU in week 2? We obviously started Corey Thornton, so the true freshman did indeed start on the outside as we expected. Zamari Maxwell, who was somebody that we kind of had some question marks about in terms of what we saw last year, he was on the other side of the field. And so how does all that sort of play together? Some of the youth coming together, and then when Collier went out, I believe Derek Gaines and Dylan Lester were both the two guys who came into play in that spot. So the defensive coverage stuff is certainly something that I was. It was kind of shocking how open some of those guys were. Luckily, our D line came through and got pressure, and we ended up getting turnovers. But I mean, that was one thing. I certainly would love to see second half Randy turn into first half Randy on those things.
And it was really one guy that was killing us the whole game. This guy Gibbs.
Yeah.
It was the kid that returned the kick to start the game. He had 73 yards on the ground. He had 60 yards in the air. He was their one weapon that really hurt us, and we needed to focus in on him a little bit more. Other than that, defense did a pretty good job shutting the rest of the team down. All right. Do you have an update on the status of Trey Nixon? I don't. We'll have one later here in the week as we continue to figure out more with his situation.
The hell are you talking to? Am I going to tell you that? Who are you with? I don't even. Who let this guy? Is this a Zoom call? Are we checking these people before they get in here? No, I'm not going to tell you the update of Trey Nixon because I don't want anyone to know who's going to be on the field because our team, we're one unit. All these guys can play. I hope Trey's out there. He's going to work his ass off to get back out there, but I'm not telling you that. Maybe he's there next week. Maybe he's there the week after. Maybe he doesn't play again. You're going to have to just keep coming back each Saturday, and we'll find out. But for right now, I have no update on Trey Nixon. He's a really good kid, and he can sing really well. How's that? That's my update for Trey Nixon.
You remember that time I had Mackenzie Milton dressing on the sidelines when we went to East Carolina? I had no intention of playing him. Exactly. You know who I am? You know my name? Josh Heupel. I'm not telling you crap. You'll find out on Saturdays exactly what's going to happen. So there's your update.
And that's where I feel for the media guys. We talked about this with Trace on our pregame show on Saturday and asking questions of coaches because you have to ask that question, right? If you're in the media, you have to find out, is he going to give us anything on these guys? But he's going to give you that answer, right? So it's got to be one of those just like you almost wonder if the guys are like, all right, whose turn is it this week to ask him? All right, your turn. Banneret, you guys go. I asked last week. You just gotta wonder, if he's not going to answer the question, but they have to ask it, and hopefully, we'll get an update on Trey at least here soon. I think everyone sort of knows, where we are with that, and hopefully it turns out for the best.
At this point, I'm surprised he doesn't just put everybody on the injured list going into every game like Belichick, the old Bill Belichick trick. Brady's he was on the injured report every week of his career at the Patriots, right?
Yeah, shoulder.
So it said leg or shoulder. Yeah. and the hockey one is lower body or something like that. So I'm surprised he hasn't gone that route yet, just to confuse people.
Yeah, I'm sure if it's legal, don't give him any ideas. I'm sure that'll be his next thing up. One other thing quickly, Mike, that we touched on a little bit in a few shows. It doesn't necessarily require the translator, so I can unplug that machine. But we had bandied about who would be the starters, particularly on the offensive, defensive lines. So just an update to everybody who listened in to our prediction on the depth chart. Here was the offensive line, Mike, and obviously we learned before kickoff that Parker Boudreaux would be out with concussion protocol. To be fair, neither of us knew that. None of us, I don't think, really knew that leading into the game. I don't know when that concussion transpired, so I don't have any timelines on when he might be back. Although I at least did not necessarily think he would be in the part of the top 5, not because I don't think he earned it, just because I feel like that's where the coaches were trending. Here was the starting offensive line from left to right. Left tackle, Edward Collins. Left guard, Sam Jackson. Center, Matthew Lee. Right guard, and I'm going to butcher this name all year, Lokai Paule, and right tackle was Marcus Tatum. So the surprise starter there, and Lokai Paule, and obviously no Parker Boudreaux, but no Cole Schneider, who was like a freaking All-American. He did not trot out there with the first group. Now, he did play a bunch. It seems like they were rotating, Mike, but that was, just to tie up the loose end there, that was the first 5 out on the offensive line.
Interesting to see who starts this week. Is Parker going to be back? Who knows? Concussions are tricky, man. Concussions can be a week. Concussions can be a month. It could be a long time, depending on, I don't know how many concussions he's had in history. So that's a big question mark. But will we see the same starting 5 2 weeks in a row, 3 weeks in a row? Once we start getting that rhythm and figure out what the best unit is together, then you get some consistency going. That we may not know the answer to this question for the first month of the season. Maybe trying things out, mixing things around here and there. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on, though, for this week. Is this the same starting 5, or maybe Schneider gets to start this week, and maybe they're battling it out for the first couple of weeks. Maybe it's that close of a battle along the line.
Well, interestingly enough, one of the questions that Heupel was asked in his press conference was that Sam Jackson played at least 15 snaps at 4 different positions on the offensive line. So he moved around a ton. So are they going to go to a rotation all year? Is that what we're going to see? Are there positives and negatives with that? Like, are you ever going to get a group that can gel together? Obviously, it sounds like Matt Lee's probably the anchor, the guy who's not moving around a ton, because I think, he's got to make the calls. But, I'll be curious to see how they trot out again. I think, Edward Collins is a kid who struggled a little bit last year. He had some really bad false start penalties. At the Tulsa game comes to mind when I think about that. And so we'll see if he's made taken some pride. But that's what we got on the offensive line. On the defensive line, we had the same debate on who would start, Mike. I think we both got this right. So we had Randy Charlton, Kenny Tunier, Montalvo, and Stefan Zayas were the first 4 across the line. I know you had been talking about Tremont Morris-Brash. He did not get in there. Obviously, Josh Celiscar did not start either. So the first 4 were Charlton, Tunier, Montalvo, and Zayas.
Right, but just because you're not starting, defense is a little different. When you get the offensive line rolling, it usually that you got 5 guys and they're the offensive line for the whole game. But defensive line, that's a rotation. You got to sub guys in and out. Sometimes it's like a hockey sub where you see all 4 guys coming in and out. But I'm sorry, what's his name? Celiscar. He didn't start, but he made a big impact early in the game with a couple turnovers. So
yeah. And Corey Thornton, obviously, as we mentioned, was the starter at corner. We did not see any of the transfers, and so the status of the transfers seems like it's still up in the air. So as we sit here on recording nights, there's no word on whether or not those guys will be eligible at any point in time. So we'll just have to sit tight and see what that looks like. But that's the Heupel translator, Mike. We'll bring that thing back next week. Maybe we'll add in some players. I mean, Dylan Gabriel had some good comments. We'll see if we can get this, recalibrate this thing to work with a lot of different options. But sit tight. We're going to recalibrate now as Mike's picks. And I don't know if they were good. I don't know if they're bad. We all learned together as a group. So stick around. We will be right back, and you will learn how Mike did on his weekly picks. We are the Sons of UCF.
Mike versus everybody.
Everyone's been waiting. Everyone's been wondering. How did UCF Mike do on his weekly picks? Heck, how did all of us do? For those of us who remember to go in and make their picks, I'm actually not sure if I'm one of those people. I forget now if I did or did not. Weekly picks. Mike goes through games that have impact on the UCF world.